If we think about some of the moral and like kind of social issues that come up from, well, I guess we have to think about this in near and term and like future kind of context.
Yeah. Again, the far future stuff gets quite hard to imagine.
Yes, but yes, yeah, okay. So let's more discuss first about like a recognizable society.
Yeah, sure.
So
it's like, what if this happened now-ish, basically?
Now-ish, yeah. Even like within advanced technology, or in like 100 years, whatever.
Yeah.
We aren't probably going to be able to get everyone off Earth.
No.
So I think the first questions is like, who runs this thing?
Yeah.
Who's in charge of? I mean, maybe every nation has its own kind of program.
Yeah, but then surely you still need someone to kind of spearhead it. If each nation, or do you literally mean each nation is building their own ship or something like that?
Maybe.
There's plenty of nations that won't be able to do that.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, I feel like
Do you
if
think
it was an immediate threat, like going back to what we were talking about before about it being like 50 years or less away, like the event, I feel like you would get global, at least global collaboration on a single project.
Quite possibly, but do you think so? So obviously, like the support for in certain countries. So say, like maybe within Europe or say America they said like, the American money that goes into this, we want it to go into saving Americans or saving Europeans or saving British people or whatever, Other countries going to think in that sort of selfish way, or are they going to be like where everyone's going to put their resources into saving as many people from as many countries as possible?
It's possibly the former. Well, you might think that, okay, we've paid X amount of money, that means we get that proportion of people on this ship have to be from our country. You buy tickets essentially.
Yeah,
that's what you're doing.
Although,
so it's either that way of looking at it, or
there's not like there might not be a monetary value as such anymore, though.
Sure.
Like if you see what I mean. If there's no,
resources are still going to be important, aren't they? Because the country with the most resources is going to be the one that does probably the most building of whatever this thing is.
Yes.
So maybe they will view that as they've sort of bought their right to have the majority of number of people on board.
Yeah.
Or the other way of looking at it is that it will be more rationalised than that, and that we will realise that what we need really is a diverse range of people.
Yeah.
To like maximise genetic diversity and stuff like that.
So if we're having if you think about a small crew, this like life raft of people that get sent out, under the scenario that we've not got very long and we just have to send like people some seeds, embryos, that sort of scenario. In that case, you're not going to be sending out people who are not highly. You're basically going to be sending out astronauts, like highly trained, extremely like high capability,
educated,
very well educated, etc. people, and that people of those type only come from certain countries. There are very few people that come from poorer third world countries that are astronauts because they don't have the access to those kinds of education systems, etc.
Yeah.
So your crew for this like small thing could be like racially diverse, but it's not going to be that diverse in terms of it come from a few nations.
Yeah.
But like there's loads of third world countries that would not be getting anyone on that thing.
Yeah. Sure. Even if it's quite a large crew, I mean, it wouldn't have to be. I mean, are you talking about just like maybe like 5 to 10 people? Or are you talking about like
or even 100?
100, yeah, even 100. Yeah, agreed. They would still be 100 of like probably
the
most highly skilled
area.
experts of exactly. Like really real experts in various science and engineering fields, medicine and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
As well as like the technical expertise to run the ship.
How to grow food there, like botanists, like engineers to run like the solar panels, all those kinds of things. It would just be like a highly trained like unit of very specialised and extremely smart and highly capable people.
So there's going to be huge like whole demographics and whole populations of countries that just don't even get a look in,
and that
just have no.
And that's. Although that's probably, I mean, you could argue people could train people to do that. Maybe that's true, but in the time we're talking about small amounts of time.
Yeah, and that's that would be viewed as a waste of resources doing that, seeing as we already have the pool of expertise ready to go.
It might be, but obviously it's not. I don't know. It might not be seen as a waste of resources for people just because it's like. We're trying to get like representatives, everyone out there.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is you need a cohesive crew that understand each other and that are culturally similar in a way, so there's not like a big tensions within the group. you know, it would probably be an unfortunate, like, very objective. We have to have this succeed. That's the only thing we're selecting this on. We're looking at the facts and figures and saying, this is the best. These people are going to make this the most likely way it's going to succeed. And if that means it's just a crew from the US or just a crew from wherever, then that's just tough shit. Like we're trying to save the species, and that's our best chance of doing it. Our best way to mitigate existential risks is unfortunately to have to do that.
To send the most skilled people. Yeah. But even so, if it's like you are capable of sending thousands or even millions of people. It gets slightly different because now you won't just be sending absolute top of the field experts and everything. You will be sending a cross section.
What numbers are we talking?
Okay, let's go ridiculous and say 1 to 10 million.
Nice.
I mean, it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And maybe this is more of like a far future like scenario that we have time to build like a giant habitat type thing.
Yeah.
Let's say like 1 to 10 million people. So now you are sending a cross section of society because 10 million people aren't going to be all experts. You're going to have all people from all walks of life going on this thing now.
Yeah.
So how do you select these people? Because it's still only a tiny fraction of the population of the Earth, of course. So like, how do you select? Is it literally just a lottery? You have the experts you need, and they're picked, selected properly.
Yes, the rest you have to run the ship, and like is like
that's a necessity.
You know, you should run just like anything basic, like a cruise ship or something.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have people highly trained to run the ship in a certain way.
The rest of the population is almost just there to provide a pool of genetic diversity, really.
Yeah, and just like a big sample of humanity. You know, we're just trying to save lives essentially in that scenario. And then again, it's like that thing, like. If someone's putting more resources than everyone else, their population's going to be going. If there's like a lottery for people to get in, people want more of a chance to save them and their families or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they want, say it's a 1 in 50 chance they're going to get on it or something. But if they've put in like 50 or 60% of the resources, they might say, no, we want it as a 1 in 10 chance because we've put in that appropriate amount of expertise and skill and stuff to do it.
And there might be also an argument to adjust it by population.
Those are arguments that I'm not saying. I'm just saying that's what the population might think.
Of course. Yeah. Which is sort of all the stuff we're discussing in this section is like rationalized rather than like our actual views of how it should be done.
Yeah, which is difficult.
Which is very difficult. Yeah. So you might even find that it gets adjusted by population. So like countries, you know, you have the proportional representation of people on that ship is proportional to how much population you have. I mean, maybe that's a slightly less biased way of doing it than just resource allocation, like which countries put in the most resources.
Yeah, but they can. That's
because
like,
then you get a more representative snapshot of what the Earth looks like in terms of numbers of people.
You do, but you might not want like a representative snapshot.
That's true.
It might be like because it will be dominated by like smaller, like say, they're still quite genetically diverse, but like China and India would have a lot more people.
They would,
than a lot of Western countries, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But you might think. Perhaps we want like kind of more of an even division of different races to again for genetic diversity.
Yeah, true.
So you might want like X number of a particular race, X number of to kind of like portion it out in a more kind of rather than like a sort of politicized country like divisions of your
you
divide it in like
genetic
like
diversity
and get your best like snapshot of everyone.
Yeah,
and then you say. You've got like say you want I don't know 1/8 of them you want them to be Chinese or like a particular race within like Asia or something like that. And then the countries that have like that particular race within them, you then like take out like portions of each of that like 1/8 from different countries in order to get a wider snapshot of the different like cultures within that thing or whatever.
Yeah, but I think you're right. Genetic diversity is probably going to be the overriding, like, driving requirement for getting a spread of people.
Probably. On board. Yeah, that's tricky. That's tricky to select.
It's very tricky, and it will ultimately be a lottery. Within those constraints, it will be a lottery, probably.
Probably, yeah. Although you'd probably have people with like. You wouldn't take people would you take people from like prisons and stuff? You just say you're going to die, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't
like
know.
Criminal convictions. Do you have like any filters, or do you just go pure luck, or what?
I don't know. I mean, that's a really hard question to answer.
Murky waters.
Yeah, it's very murky waters, and again, this isn't like what I think should happen particularly, but I feel like I feel like under those circumstances, maybe we would just leave prisoners to die.
Possibly on the basis that there will be crime and stuff on these like giant.
There absolutely will be,
but you want to minimise the risk of that.
Yes,
it's like
exactly.
Cutting down existential risk.
If you take a proportion of people from prisons on board, and you know that's increasing in whatever small fraction, that's going to increase your risk of like crime, violence, whatever on board this thing, then surely that's enough of a reason to not do it.
Yeah, which is also obviously
very tricky.
In a way it's tragic because, well, yeah, some people in prisons obviously have just had some bad luck. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a whole thing is just driven by statistics, basically, like a statistical increase in chance of bad things happening on board.
And yeah, you just be like.
Tragic is definitely the right word.
Yeah, the whole thing is tragic.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely tragic. Actually, really quite horrible to think about.
Yeah, it is.
It's kind of because this is quite fun topic, but in a way, it's not that fun.
No, I mean the reality of this would be like horrendous.
Yeah.
Because you imagine after that lottery's happened, like what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Like suddenly,
and then like someone gets like a ticket, like but you've only got you've got a ticket. Say we all went and like we've got one ticket and only in our family only one person got a ticket or something like that, and so only one person. That's another thing. Do you say you take a whole family? So a ticket represents like a family, or do you take do you leave behind people without families? Do you take people who've never had families on purpose?
Yeah.
Do you want to like take everyone's loved ones in the sense that the people who go aboard don't want to be like depressed? And,
make sure the psychological like health of the crew is high. Is high. Yeah.
Exactly. You don't really want to be just taking like the odd person from other families and then just sort of like chucking them all together, because the chances
you might have a shit time.
The whole but again, you're increasing your risk of things going wrong. Of, like you say, the psychological health degrading much faster. So you'd want people to be happy. So you don't really want in any way to have those just one ticket and people trying to decide. You need to kind of like select, or maybe not select. In a way, there probably is some randomness. You select down to certain groups and then select random families or like households or whatever. But it would have to be more careful than just a basic lottery. I would think.
Yeah, you're right. It would have to be. It's more complex than that.
Yeah.
And the people in charge of it have a huge amount of responsibility.
You would
on
have
their shoulders.
That you would, but you'd have like you do with understanding how to like select like landing sites for like Mars. There's like loads of different opinions about it, but eventually you end up with a consensus that's argued and argued and argued.
Yeah.
And some people won't quite agree with like some parts of it, but you have to end up with something.
Yeah, eventually you end up with the average best opinion.
like a system that we devise for like running democracies or whatever.
Yeah.
You never get it quite right, but you kind of do.
Yeah,
the
you're
best
never going to please
think.
everybody.
Yeah.
Obviously not with something like this.
No.
But the people left behind, like, I mean, even before this thing is left, but once the lottery's done and we know who's on the crew and who's not, there's going to be millions, billions of people that know they're just doomed to die.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether that's like spread unfairly or seemingly unfairly from different demographic groups or different countries or something, you're going to have probably uprisings. The world's going to start falling apart. I would imagine people are going to be desperate. They're going to be absolutely desperate. Even if it's impossible, they're going to think that there's somehow they're going to be able to get themselves on that ship. So bands of people will probably start fighting for that. Or I mean, it's really hard to predict.
You can have a whole war.
Yeah, like uprisings of people, like revolts. And I'm not even wondering.
And you'd have a lot of kind of the population left with like plenty of capability and resources to do some like serious kind of harm to each other or damage to the ship or
damage to the I mean, it might even get to that. People are crazy, people
will be driven crazy.
So that I'm even thinking if
although they might just put those efforts instead of fighting in to try and build their own kind of types of things.
That's true.
To escape. Maybe that would probably be. Although, yeah, maybe I don't know. I think there'd probably be a mixture of the two.
Yeah, but if the whole world is pooling its resources to build this whatever it is, then there might not be that much stuff left over to have like equivalent efforts built on the other side of the world or something like that. It's really hard to imagine exactly how it would play out.
If you're talking about like you're saying in this 1 to 10 million kind of style thing, obviously you can't. There's only you can only build that like once potentially in the period of time you have. Yeah. I mean, maybe There's a scenario where you just assume that we're so good at that point, we just get everyone off, and it's just like we just spend like 1,000 years slowly taking everyone off to giant stations, and maybe that's like the happy scenario. It's like a ridiculous technological future where that's actually not that much.
Apart
of a big
from
deal.
some like groups of some crazy nut people who want to just stay behind and like watch the apocalypse happen, which will obviously happen.
Yeah, I know they can do that. If they want
fair enough. Yeah, just take some good pictures and just start selling them up to us.
Yeah, we could leave cameras behind without them, but yeah.
But I mean, I do kind of wonder if the entity or the kind of like the global sort of combined force that's building this ship would have to be militarized and defend themselves from the rest of the population that haven't been given a ticket.
Maybe.
Just because...
Again, another thing is if it depends where that ship's going. If you're going to find another... Like, if you're going towards, like, a distant alien signal that you think... You're probably going to... Do you take guns and stuff to try and fight them off if something goes horribly wrong?
Well, that's actually a really interesting question.
Well, we just talked about... Yeah. Well, I mean... Should we talk about that now?
Yeah, why not?
So, if we're going to...
If we have detected a signal, like an alien civilization signal, and we decide that our best shot of survival is to aim for it...
And then we get there, and and we're not welcome, but we have no other choice but to attack them in order to basically come as like kind of like basically a hostile like alien civilization coming to take over their planet.
Yeah, so we are the invaders. We're the invading force. We are an alien invasion essentially.
Yeah. And we do that on the basis that. Would we ever do that on the basis that that is our only option? Once we get there and we realise that they're not going to help us, but we've got the capability to do some serious damage and potentially set up like a hard colony there somewhere.
Yeah.
Would we ever have would we ever want to, and morally would it be the right thing to do? Because that's the only way, literally our only way to survive at that point.
I mean, if it comes down to the point of being... This is it. Like the ships we've built or something won't last any longer, and like we absolutely have to settle here, and they're not having any of it.
Yeah. Then,
morally, do we place our own importance above theirs? Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably we would, wouldn't we?
I guess so. I mean, people are desperate; they're going to die. I mean, they just get desperate. They just survival kicks in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're literally forced to aggressively take over this alien planet.
Yeah.
If we have the capability to. That's just sort of spins the whole like all the sci-fi films and books whatever about alien invasions. Like, you think about it from that point of view, it's like, I can understand now.
So if you think about that as well in terms of we're assuming in this scenario that we're going to another star system. But like obviously there might be like Mars or something that has its own like political entity.
That's true.
Like
Yeah.
And then maybe they might decide that they don't want us as refugees or
like suddenly like Mars, if it's like a developed world with like its own it could be like a separate, exactly like you said, separate political entity, and suddenly it's got to deal with like an influx of literally billions of refugees from the Earth.
Yeah. Although in this scenario we'd be planning ahead for it, like we're going to build these ships.
Yeah.
So we'd also, if we were going to Mars, we probably wouldn't build such large ships.
No, we wouldn't.
We'd probably be sending like stuff over there before to build the infrastructure for it. Yeah. If the whole solar system was going to be wiped out, then the people on, if it was a separate political entity in the city, the people on Mars would probably be wanting to get in on, like helping develop these ships or having their own or something like that.
And actually, you can imagine in a slightly less disastrous scenario. There might even be a time in the future when there is, say, a colony of civilization on Mars, but it's looking like it's better. Like the quality of life on Mars is actually better than it is on the Earth. Like things are going bad on the Earth. I don't know what really. Like climate change is out of control. Like it's just overpopulated to shit. I don't know what's happening really. And that this whole situation of like refugees piling into Mars might be a lot slower, but still be something that like they have to sort of contend with.
Yeah,
an interesting like idea.